Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 1904 Club, the Hull City podcast, of course, from the Hull Daily Mail. The gang is back today. Prutts, you're somewhere in a hotel room with a broken lampshade, aren't you?
I know. I've been working on that, and even when you look at this, obviously the way the screen's set up, the camera's there, isn't it? So when it's a massive giveaway that I'm looking at myself when I talk, which is pathetic. But I need to look there. So just on the road doing bits and bobs. I've checked. This is the most. It's not the most flattering, because Christ, look horrendous. But of the room, it's the most flattering angle, I think. Just get your comments in to the 1904 Club. Tell me what you think. It's not quite the Campanile at the top end of Ferns Way, is it? That's
You
still
know
there.
about that, wouldn't you?
Any hotel that does rooms by the hour, stay well away.
KB, how are you? I should think on cloud nine after the weekend.
Yeah, I was watching the game while I was actually working. I was paying more attention to the City game than the game I was actually meant to be watching for work and reporting on. But it was great. And then I had to finish the last 10 minutes while we were waiting for the managers to come. So it was sort of in the press conference room. I did let out a cheer when Pando saved the penalty, much to the confusion of everybody else in the room. But it was a great win. And good to go into the international break on that.
What was the game you were watching?
Man City women Arsenal, it was absolutely chucking it down as well. So I feel like it was fine for me to sort of I was double screening City on one side, my work, which I hadn't really done, on the other side. But I had time to do it after. I had to then speed right after City ended, and then after the managers had kind of come in, I was like, I should probably actually write something from the game that I was paid to be at.
Absolutely. Captain Burns, we were at the MKM Stadium. What was your kind of loose assessment of what you watched on Saturday?
I don't want a loose assessment. I want a tight assessment. Whether I'm capable of delivering a tight assessment is an entirely different matter.
30 years ago, maybe.
Big win, significant win for them. Needed to happen because there'd been a bit Jekyll and Hyde, the Watford games and the Preston game as well, hadn't they? So you wanted a bit of consistency. You wanted a clean sheet. They got it. It was a bit of a duff penalty, but Pando made the save. That was important. And I'm impressed with what the manager's doing. Maybe we can talk about that at some point of the 1904 Club this morning. I just like the way he's going about his business. He for me, made a mistake leaving Gelhardt out in midweek, but rightly brought him back. I don't quibble with his team selection very often, in fact, hardly at all. So I'm impressed with what he's doing. I just think going into the international break, getting that first clean sheet since the opening day, and getting the 3 points is huge for them. There was much to be positive about in the performance.
Yeah, Prutts, you covered the game obviously from a Sky point of view, and you had Chris Uwalumo, Courtney Sweetman-Kirk, and Chris Basham in the studio. Very heavily weighted towards Sheffield United, I've got to say. At least you were sat in front of the City badge, as Kathryn pointed out in the group chat, which was nice.
Do you want me to tell you something about that? I had actually chased up Fraser Campbell to come on and be a guest, but he was actually at the ground. So
he wasn't, because he was stuck in traffic.
Well, there you go. So he did neither then. He was neither at the ground nor with us down in London. So well done, Fraser.
Not there.
Yeah, he was somewhere. He did reporting from someone on the Clive Sullivan. It was. I just thought it was just such a fun game to watch, and I know that Chris was a bit. It was quite combative afterwards, as he tends to be, given the nature of what Sheffield United find themselves in. United hit a post. Yes, there was a penalty, but I didn't. Oh, and please correct me if I'm wrong from what you felt in the stadium. It wasn't backs to the wall, was it? There was no kind of overt jeopardy for the team. John Egan had a good game. I felt for John Lundstrom coming off early doors. Ollie was absolutely superb. Heading everything in his own box, leading the line. And I think what you saw there was a team that's quite capable. Yes, I mean, Sheffield United are nowhere near where they should be, given the players that they've got. But Hull City did exactly what they needed to do to get the win. I thought the atmosphere created was fantastic. And having spoken to the manager, a man that you've spoken so glowingly about before the game, I get it. I do. I get it. He's a big presence. He's a charismatic presence. And both him and Ollie were talking about the marker that is laid down having 15 goals. And he said it in such a charmingly scary way, the boss, that you kind of think that Ollie's probably going to do that pretty succinctly. So no, all in all, and going back to Burnsy's point, it's a time to chat and get into detail about it. But that first kind of opening exchanges that we're going to talk about, just a very, very good day all round.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathryn, we talked about it before the game, about how that the result would give a great perception of City's start. You know, if they got a point, you'd go, okay, but the fact they've won it, and given where they were, you know, after 10 minutes at half-time on Tuesday night against Preston, to have got 4 points from those games, you would never have believed it given that first half on Tuesday night, would you?
No, 4 points for those two fixtures, I think, is a really good return, because I always thought they would be tricky, just because Preston are a hard team to beat and have started quite well, and also Sheffield United, obviously the Tuesday night game they'd lost, but they'd got that first win, so you were kind of expecting them to be better than where they have been. Also, really just nice to beat Sheffield United at home. I feel like it's been a long time, and also, I don't know why, but Sheffield United fans and people from Sheffield seem to have this assumption that Hull's not in Yorkshire. So when you say Yorkshire Derby, they're like, "Oh, Hull's not in Yorkshire," and it was just quite, quite pleasing to finally get one over at home. But yeah, I think Burns has said it as well. They've lacked consistency. It's been, get a good result, then a poor one, and kind of be disappointed, and you're not 100% sure where they are. But from those two games, the comeback against Preston, the response in the second half, and then the 90 minutes against Sheffield United was really, really positive. And it almost feels a little bit disappointing now that we've got the international break, because you kind of feel like actually Birmingham being the next game, they're kind of on a bit of a strange run. You would go to that away from home thinking, there's a possibility of getting a result there. And you hope they just don't lose that momentum over the international break.
Absolutely. Just for reference, it was 4 straight defeats at home against Sheffield United. I think the last one was 1-0 at home, Nua Dicko in 2018 was the last one. So not a great record, but obviously they did win 3-0 at Bramall Lane in January. So that's 4-0 on aggregate in the last 2 games against Chris Wilder's Sheffield United. Burnsy, City were really organised. And yes, they rode their luck against United, which they're always going to do against a team of that quality. But Palmer hitting the post in the first half, then obviously the penalty. But in between that, it was a bit like the Southampton game, wasn't it? Where they kind of accepted, certainly second half, that United were going to have a lot more ball. City did have more of it in the first half, but they kept them at arm's length. You think of the chances that Sheffield United had. Well, Pando's only had 3 shots on target in the game, and none of them were of any significant threat to him. Yes, the penalty, it can happen. Ajay, probably a little bit of rustiness on Danny Ings, makes a challenge that he didn't make at Coventry. And they get away with one in the sense it's not the best penalty, but credit to the goalkeeper. But they did a job on Sheffield United again, didn't they? All that attacking quality that they've got at their disposal, they never really looked a threat.
Yeah, Palmer, for me, they gave him a bit too much space at times and invited him to shoot, which he did on a couple of occasions, but he doesn't look the player he was last season.
No.
Peck should have probably scored with a header when the cross came in, and he got underneath it. But City were well organised, and they reorganised. And I'm sure we'll talk about what the latest on Lundstram is after the injury. They reorganised after that early injury where he went off. Hughes, for me, had his best game since probably the opening day, if not his best game of the season. Egan was, Prutts has mentioned him, steady away. Defence was good. Ironically, I think, given that we've talked about him before, Ryan Giles was probably better defensively than offensively on Saturday. There was a couple of moments when I thought his cross might have been better. He was trying to get McBurnie in and get that partnership or continue that partnership going. But, much to commend. And Hadzimatovic came on and he was not good against Preston. And you thought, what are we going to get today? And he played his part and filled in well for Lundstram. And I think you've got to give an honourable mention to most of them, but also an honourable mention to Slater in midfield. he reminded a few people of his quality for me today, or on Saturday rather. I don't know whether that's answered the question. I've just rambled on there. It's Monday morning. I'll just get it
That's
all
what
out of the
podcasts are,
system.
Burnsy.
Basically. Prutts, there was a lot of talk about McBurnie in the build-up.
I know.
And understandably so, given the links and his former club and all the media build-up and the fact that he's on absolute fire. Chris Wilder said after the game that he didn't do. I think his quote was, Ollie Mac didn't do a lot. In terms of that, he didn't do a huge amount going forward. He probably, if he wanted that chance again, he'd probably score when he picks up the loose ball and runs towards the box and twists and turns and pokes it. But it was, as you touched on before, it was Ollie's all-round game. He led from the front. He was in the box. He was clearing headers. And for a striker, you're not going to score every week. He scored a lot recently. But the work he did around it was so important. And he is their talisman, isn't he? He's so important.
Yeah. And going back to what Burnsy said, there was a position that Giles got himself in where he is looking for Ollie, isn't he, around the front? And a bit more pace, I think that gets it beyond the first defender. And I think there was an instance just before that where whoever's gone down the left-hand side hasn't looked for Ollie and he's gone bananas at him for not whipping it across. I think he went for a shot instead of whipping it across the face. I can't remember what that was. But yeah, I mean, and I suppose Chris is right by definition of what he says about Ollie not having bundles of clear-cut chances. But as you say, a striker's game nowadays is not just literally defined by the goals that he's got. I mean, unless you're Erling Haaland. But about what he does and the presence that he's got. The presence was that imperative, I thought. So when the board goes up and he comes off, we all thought, not sure about that, because you've got, 10 minutes left, maybe 15 minutes left. You've got an international break. He's not going anywhere. Get the last 10 minutes out of him, which didn't happen, but City managed to see it through. And he is, at this moment in time, he's in that wonderful sweet spot of his performances are matching his personality and vice versa. So he's everywhere on the pitch, literally. He's everywhere on the pitch, figuratively, because he's managing to influence everyone who's around him. And he's just doing a fantastic job. And not just because I've met him a couple of times and seen him play for a hell of a long time, but I'd like to think, given what he's given City so far, that he's been collectively loved and welcomed, hasn't he? Because he's done what every good new player should do: come in, perform, don't kick up a fuss, do what very Roy Keane do his job, do what he's paid to do, and he's done that with Belleville.
Kathryn, give us the terrace view, because the fans love him, don't they? From early on, they were chanting his song, and he has been phenomenal. The way he's charismatic, his character, as Prutts says, the way he's playing, obviously scoring goals, which clearly helps as well. But from the fans' point of view, they worship him already, don't they?
Yeah, but I think he's very passionate, isn't he? And I think he's always had that throughout his career. And I think every club he's been at, the fans have always liked him. I think he was very popular at Swansea. I know there was a little bit of Sheffield United where some sections of the fan base maybe thought he should have contributed more goals, but I think quite a lot of them probably would have taken him back in the summer as well. And, yes, he's getting the goals, but I think it's also just how he's carrying himself, and he endears himself to the fans by the way he kind of, the way he behaves almost. I think he leads from the front. He always gives 100%. You can't kind of fault his effort. Even on Saturday, he might not have scored the goal, but he contributed in so many other ways. And, I think that's all the types of things that fans love in a player. And I always kind of said he's the type of player that you always want to play for your team, but you hate if they play for the opposition. And I think he's still got that about him. And, I don't think he could be doing any more for us, really.
Go on, Burnsy.
I was just going to say on the subject of McBurnie, this into the 1904 club from Peter Johnson. It sums it up nicely. I thought McBurnie's performances at right back, centre half, and centre forward were all good. I'll continue with his message to us, but we'll come to this as a discussion later because it's important. Palmer's situation not really a surprise. Pleased at Pandor's honesty in post-match interview. I think that was with Sky, with your lot, Prutts, wasn't it? Pandor talked after the game, admitted. I think he admitted he'd maybe not been as good as he might have been or hoped to be in the last few games? Is that a fair summation?
Without remembering the details, I think it was along those lines. I mean, we steamed straight in as we like to do with. It's your first ever penalty save, and he went, "No, it's not. It's my second." Obviously, it is slightly pedantic. I mean, if you'd suddenly gone, "No, I saved 10 of them," you're going. But the fact that, because it was, we looked at Akintola's first goal for City and that being his first save, and he quite correctly corrected us, which was right. But yeah, and I just think we're not getting carried away, I don't think, but you should celebrate a good team on a good day, which is what it was. The big beaming smile that Pandora had towards the crowd behind him when he saved it. And going back to Kathryn's point about what Ollie is reflecting on the terraces, he's raging when things don't go right, and he's got a big smile on his face when things go correctly. That inherently is what a fan's match day experience is, isn't it? That's terrible. That's brilliant. And he's like that. So long may that continue. And the thing that's backing it up, which in this day and age when footballers can be quantified in different ways, he's literally having a tangible effect on what goes on the pitch. On the weekend, it was more defensive. But as we were chatting on Saturday morning, Baz, his goal involvements reflecting the very best in English football. Maybe, obviously, now that's changed with Haaland scoring at the weekend. But it shows sometimes you can get these kind of cultish figures that are all kind of mouth and no trousers. He's got a bit of everything, hasn't
he? Yeah, absolutely. And credit to Dave Akintola as well, because he's been a bit hit and miss since coming in. And he got a huge size to look because I feel like his volley was heading for the north.
That was going miles off. That was on its way to Hull Royal Car Park, I think, until it got a deflection.
Well, the camera angle behind the goal is brilliant because he obviously hits it. It comes off on Bene, former City target, by the way, spins off his arm, and he's appealing for the penalty. And his eyes like, it's not in.
No, but I still want a pen. By the laws of the game, I still want a pen.
Yeah, he had one in the second half of a volley which went equally as high, but that time didn't get the deflection. But no, I think important for Akintola as well, Kathryn, because he has been up and down. We've had the good and the not so good from him in little cameo appearances since. But you can see how much it meant to him. He's a great lad. He's such a nice guy, which doesn't mean you're going to be a good footballer. But the fact he got his goal and it was the winning goal again in such a massive game as well, that should give him a huge confidence spurt going forward, shouldn't it? Especially he's going to have it tough. Balumi's not far away from returning. Miller's, finding his feet. Ondala's going to be back for Birmingham, we think. So he's got a fair bit of competition out there, hasn't he?
Yeah, and sometimes when things aren't going your way, maybe you need a little bit of luck to kind of help you, and you would hope that kind of improves his confidence a little bit. We have seen flashes of him, at Bristol City away. He got a great assist for the Gelhardt goal, so we know he's got it in him to produce little bits of magic, but he's just not been consistent. And I think probably, I saw the starting 11 on Saturday, and I was sort of thinking, why has he brought him in? And to be fair, he ends up getting the winning goal, and I think there probably would have been a few people maybe question his selection. But again, you can't fault his work rate, and hopefully that does improve his confidence. I mean, I've been calling McBurnie McGoals, and one of my friends messaged me when Akintola scored and called him Akingola. So
nice.
If you get a few more, then maybe you could have that nickname permanently.
Prutts, clean sheet wise, it's obviously been a problem. We talked about it at length. We've talked about it at length on here, and it has been, they're a big Achilles heel. They've looked really susceptible all season. The fact that they conceded 16 goals in the league before that game, and we actually referenced it in the post match on Tuesday with Sergei himself. How, what you'd give for a 1-0 scrappy win on Saturday, and that's essentially exactly what he got. And you never believed before the game that they were capable of gritting out a 1-0. Particularly, they almost out Sheffield United. We've seen it so many times. United under Wilder that they've not been at the best, but they've ground out a 1-0 win, and that's what good teams do. And City did that, and that clean sheet psychologically for Pandora, Hughes, and Egan, but as a collective, should be massively important confidence-wise.
Yeah, I'd chuck Ryan and Louis into that as well. I thought, as a collective, I thought they were really good. Nothing overtly intricate about what they did. You can make it sound very common sense and straightforward. It's about being a collective and making sure those players in front of you do the job, which they absolutely did, didn't they? So as a unit, whether you took at the back four and the two holding midfielders or the back four and the goalkeeper, to a man, they were resolute, they were stout. I think, as you say, given, yes, United having a lot of the ball, again, it doesn't matter if they're not doing too much with it. Pandor, the amount of saves that he had to make was minimal. Harmer's shot from distance, rattling the post. Again, we know what he's capable of. But it wasn't necessarily, like I said, and hopefully I'm not misreading what I saw with my own eyes, but it wasn't a backs to the wall job. No smash and grab. Chris, I listened to Chris post-match and I understand the position that he finds himself in with United, and I understand what he's talking about with regards to being happy to a point with what he saw from his side, but it's about results absolutely now for them. But you do get games as a player where you do cede a lot of possession, but you're fine with that. And I think broadly, given what we've seen from City and given the players that they've got and given the way that Jurkovic wants them to set up, that seems like against the team. And we keep putting Sheffield United in that bracket. I mean, they're literally bottom of the league. So at some stage, they're going to have to go through the gears, but they would be seen to be one of the better squads in the division, just woefully underperforming when it comes to results. So I think that's a way of playing that I think suits City. And again, we've discussed in the past various managers in charge of this football club and this team and what they want to do at home. I think City fans are happy with them doing that at home when you see what they're like going forward. Joe Gelhardt was a player that was just mentioned in passing just a minute ago. And the position that he took up, I think we discussed it about where he might get moved around the pitch, but cutting in and little intricate passes and looking for 1-2s in and around the box. I've loads of time for that. You know what I mean? So when you do get the ball, it's not belted forward. City are not a team built to belt it forward. There's an intricacy to them, which I really do quite like. And they're happy to take chances in and around the opposition 18-yard box as and when they get possession. And we're not saying that this one game is absolutely the blueprint of how they approach the rest of the season. For this game, for that challenge in particular, I thought it was absolutely spot on. And again, I didn't feel, and it's a shame when you're not at games because you can't really feel the tempo of the crowd. Didn't feel like City fans were on the edge of the seats thinking, oh, God, I mean, we're hanging on it. I didn't feel that at all. I thought they were more than happy with how they were set up, with how the players were performing. And you said about Hadzimatovic coming in, and we're going to discuss how you react to being left out of teams and squads, I'm sure, very shortly. That's the reaction. Gutted that you're not starting. Come on in the first 5 or 10 minutes. Get on with it. Absolutely did that.
Just coming into the 1904 club, and it touches on something that Prutts touched on there. Steve Benwell, the Hove Tiger, says 2 classic away performances in our 3 home wins, which is, it's nicely put. It fits in beautifully with what you were saying, Prutts. It makes it even more frustrating that we can't seem to show that same discipline and resilience away. P.S. Great to see Slater back near his best on Saturday. Picking up on that, let me go up the messages. Lots of messages coming in to the 1904 Club. You can find us on Twitter at the 1904 Club. Smart therapies. Actually, let me read this first for Oliver Harsley. So good to see us dig in and show a resilient side to our game and get both the win and the clean sheet. Glad that Akintola got his first goal, and pleased for Pandor as well with a penalty save after what happened in the Preston game. Tiger Delic says, loving how proper competition in the squad is bringing the best out of Coyle and Slater again, how it should be, and long may it continue. Really enjoying the return of crossing the ball into the box. Yeah, it's a great joy, I have to say. Simple, but yeah, very effective and entertaining. And just finally on Coyle and Slater, smart therapies to the 1904 clubs. Says, ask the question, who'll be the scapegoat if Coyle and Slater continue to play at that level? Funny how every manager plays them, and when they don't play, it's never long before they get back in. Clearly better players than they get credit for, which I think is a fair point, well made. Some of the stuff coming into the 1904 club. Do you want to talk about Slater and Coyle?
Yeah, absolutely. On the subject of Louis Coyle, Kathryn. He's obviously had a really difficult summer with getting injured out in Turkey, and Cody Drameh coming in. And there was a big play for Drameh. A lot of fans wanted Drameh back in the team and what have you. But Coyle's been, since he came back in the side at Swansea, he's been brilliant, hasn't he? Obviously, his ball for Lundstrom's second goal against Southampton, fantastic. The one, Chris Wilder said it. The one bit of quality in the game was Louis Cole's cross for Akintola's finish on Saturday. So, Coyle's been very, very good, hasn't he? And he's shown why, as Burnsy said there, so many managers pick him. It's not because he's local. It's not because his surname's Coyle. It's because they think he's a very, very good footballer at this level.
Yeah, and do you know what? He just looks so much happier this season. I don't know if it's just the fact that he was able to reset in the summer. Because I said it last season. I thought there were times last season where he looked like he was playing and he was just angry. And I know he had a couple of, not clashes, but kind of, was maybe not himself in the media or whatever. And he looks now like the Louis Cole that played under Liam Rossini in that season where they nearly made the playoffs, because I thought he was brilliant that season. And he's just playing his best football. But I think it's because he looks happy again. And he's clearly got the trust of the manager. I think there's a good kind of team spirit in that squad. McBurnie's kind of spoken about it. I think they go back a little bit from their earlier days in football. And he's playing really well. And you absolutely would, he's crucial at the minute. You wouldn't take him out of the team. His cross on Saturday was brilliant. I think that he's been doing that in every game this season. And you really kind of can't fault him. And I'm actually really pleased for him, because I think he does get a bit of stick. I think maybe he doesn't kind of get the appreciation he deserves from the supporters. Yes, he was maybe had a difficult season last year, as pretty much everybody did. He's turned up this summer, come back from the injury. He's playing really well, and it's just nice to see. And I think, long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said before, special mention for Regan, because I thought he was very, very good on Wednesday night when he came on Saturday as well. Prutts, in terms of the goalkeeper, he needed that, didn't he? By his own admission, he had a poor start. He gave away the second goal against Preston. Yes, it wasn't the greatest penalty from Harrison Burrows. Still got to save it, and you've still got to keep hold of it and not push it out, and the rebound be put in. So what do you think that'll do for Ivor going into the next block of 6 games?
We should give him confidence. And what also happens as well, when you see a goalkeeper stepping up like that, it helps to calm everyone down around him. It spreads a bit of composure to the defence, and a good defence gives that back to the goalkeeper. So I think you saw a fair bit of that on Saturday. You can, the relative merits of what a penalty, or how you judge a penalty being good or bad. I mean, literally, if Ivor dives the other way, Harrison's rolled it into the bottom corner, hasn't he? So it was well guessed from him. I say guessed, it was well preempted from him. And the reaction, I thought, said it all, really. A real look of joy and relief on his face, which was mirrored in the City fans behind that goal. So, it's about that confidence side of it. I mean, if you look at a goalkeeper like that plays for a football club such as City, and again, I mean this with the greatest respect, we've talked about the team being prone to inconsistency over the start of the season. The goalkeeper has been one that's been tarred with that same brush. But again, it's like Kathryn's point about Louis Coyle in a team last season that was struggling. Nobody gets away with it. No, Ollie's been fantastic, but apart from him, no one's been pulling up trees up until this last block of games. So it should give him composure, should give him confidence. And the most important thing is he carries that on into the next game. And again, nicking all of Kathryn's points, it's just a bit, yes, it's a nice block of time to have put some work into players that need it, allow players to have a bit of a rest up that have given you everything. But that, if there was a case of playing Birmingham City next weekend or on Tuesday or Wednesday, I get the feeling collectively everyone would have been there really ready and raring to go, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I think the break, I guess you can make it fit any argument, can't you? If you lose a game, you're like, well, the break's bad for us because we, like Bristol City before the last one, we want to get out there and put it right. Equally, does it break your momentum if you go into it on the win? I think for City, I get the feeling they're quite happy to have the break because of the injuries. Obviously, Lundstrom came off after 40 minutes of a calf problem. They hope that that's not serious, that there's a feeling that he'll be all right for Birmingham. Obviously, Ndala will be fit for Birmingham, so that gives him time. Liam Miller's gone away with Canada. So in some respects, it'd be better if he stayed. But equally, if he gets 15 minutes in each game and he comes through okay, he's in better shape for Birmingham.
That's sorry to put in, Baz. I mean what I mean, I don't know any of the details of that, but it's almost a year out. He comes and plays 45 minutes. He was very good in that 45 minutes. And then he gets called. I mean, I understand that. And given where, obviously, international football is going into next summer, I do totally get that. But there is surely there's a bit of a reticence from City's point of view to, I say, okay, that our football clubs in a position to okay a player going away internationally. If he's called up, isn't he?
They can't. Yeah, the FIFA rules state they can't do anything about it. So I think Jurkovic is. I think he'd rather Miller and Shemi Ajayi not travel, to the others. Well, on hours on an aeroplane.
KB's favourite player.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I think there's an acceptance that in Miller's case, if he does play 15 minutes against Australia or 10 minutes against Colombia, then perhaps he comes back ready for Birmingham, having topped up his minute tank better than if he was training for a week here. So it's as long as he doesn't, he didn't feel right to start on Saturday. He said to the manager after his 45 minutes that he didn't feel ready to start. So he's clearly, obviously, I think it's understandable. He's been out for the best part of a year, and he'd not played any 21s football. Like Balumi had had 10 minutes, a couple of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. He played an hour for the 21s. Miller's not had any of that, and his injury was even worse than Balumi. So
why hasn't he had any of that? Is it just by the timing of how these games have come about with his recovery? Yeah,
I mean, they had penciled him in to play at Fleetwood a couple of weeks ago, but it was away from home. It was a Fleetwood's training complex. I think they felt that 6 hours on a coach plus playing on a training field probably wasn't the best option for his first game back. So they felt that they'd give him a chunk of time originally against Watford, but obviously the game didn't pan out like they wanted it to. Then they gave him a chunk. He wanted to play, and they gave him a chunk against Preston, but he wasn't. He then didn't feel fit enough to start, which is again.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
what I liked about the Canada call-up was that they called him up before he'd actually played at all. I think they called him up on the Tuesday. Maybe they were anticipating he was going to make a comeback, but at that point he hadn't played against Preston. I mean, it was like they'd called him up based on, and it's like he hadn't played any football. I think that's what kind of irritated me about it. And I get that maybe they wanted to have him around the group, and it might do him good to go and back and be in that environment. And maybe he actually won't play that much for them, but it's the travelling with it as well. But I think that's what kind of irritated me about it. But it's Jesse Marsh, he's a former Leeds manager, so
Well, that's the thing.
To be fair, on the flip side as well, given international football, you've got a player that's pulling up trees, scoring goals with assists and getting absolutely nowhere near his national side. I mean, with a real body of work from the start of the season so far. So there's no rhyme or reason to international football, is there, sometimes?
I can only imagine that Scotland must have Ali McCoy start of retirement if McBurnie. But yeah, look, Miller.
Ali G.
Yeah, but Miller, look, Jesse Marsh loves him, and he wants him. I think he wants him part of. Now he's fit, or he's back playing. He wants him part of the Canada setup. They've obviously got a massive home World Cup coming up next summer. Even if he doesn't play much, I think they wanted to reintegrate him back into the group. And obviously for Liam, playing for Canada is big, understandably. And but for City, you're going to be watching that through, from behind the sofa, hoping that there's nothing to worry about. And Kathryn, Shemi Ajayi off to Nigeria.
Yeah, I think he came off the bench, didn't he? And he thought, I'm going to make Kathryn look really stupid after I'd called for him to be brought back. But in my defence, it's not the ideal situation when he's been out for quite a few weeks to come in and help, try and see a game out. And he's rusty and he makes a sort of stupid tackle on Danny Ings, who's very experienced centre forward. And I did think he made the most of it a little bit, but it was very clumsy. But yeah. And then obviously Hughes and Egan also played extremely well. So I don't see him getting back in that, first game back after the break either. But it didn't go well for me, that did it?
Not at all.
I mean, bless him. You saw him come on and because when I first saw it, I'm like you, Kathryn, I thought Danny had made a bit of a meal of it. A great twisting and turning, quick feet. But when you see the react, and I've been there so many times, when you look round to the reaction of your teammates looking for a bit of backup, and everyone's going, for fuck's sake, looking down. And then you look at the replay and you go, wow, that's a really sore one. The fact that you've raked down the side of his leg. Bless him, he had nowhere to turn. And again, it was one of those situations where when you're watching the game thinking, yes, Sheffield United have got a lot of the ball, but they're not peppering City's goal. And he comes on to shore things up, and that happens. And I just felt I was gutted from him at the time because I thought City had done so many good things that to come off the back of to come off that and it be a 1-1 draw, Chris would have been able to then say, "Well, I think we deserved it." And statistically, you could probably say to a degree, but I just think the feel of the game, it felt against the run of the play. I thought, given what it done, but it was quite clearly a penalty, but a poorly taken one, thankfully for City.
He clearly thought, I'm going to commit a penalty so then Panda can have the confidence of saving it. That's what he was thinking at the time.
Always thinking about other people.
It's not really, that's the beauty of it, Burnsy, though, isn't it? That we've talked so much about their defensive troubles. Now they've kept a clean sheet. He's not going to change it. It's great for John Egan. He's back in the Ireland squad as well for the first time in over 2 years. Charlie Hughes, as you said, McBurnie aside, I had Charlie Hughes as my man of the match, actually. I thought, bar one error in the first half, he was brilliant. And that's coming on the back of some really iffy performances. But they've kept a clean sheet, and they don't need to rush Shemi back. Obviously, hopefully he gets a few minutes for Nigeria and comes back okay. But you'd fancy that back five will be fairly settled going to St Andrews. And that is really important, isn't it?
They've earned another chance. I mean, they got another chance after Tuesday night. Maybe there weren't necessarily great options to replace them, but they got the chance and they took it. I thought it was the best they'd played for a while. It's nice to see Hughes playing as he should be playing. You've got to remember he's still a young defender, and maybe we'll talk about him on another 1904 club. But I think it's important. I listened to the manager on Saturday after the game, talking about the international call-ups. Not happy, but accepting of it for two reasons. There's not a lot he can do about it, as you say. It is FIFA, and also, as you alluded to, Prutts, that it's the World Cup next year. You can't deny players the chance to be part of their nation's build-up to the World Cup and get a chance to go to the World Cup. So hopefully they'll all travel and come back injury free and be available for the squad. Can I read a couple of messages out, and it might lead us into the elephant in the room we've not quite discussed yet. Harry Tal says the balance in midfield was much better on Saturday. It's clear the Lundstram and Amir partnership. It's clear that Lundstram and Amir don't work together. An interesting point. Need the energy of Slater or JB to have some control. JB's physical presence and energy has gone a little bit unrecognised, I feel. It's a fair point, Harry. Thank you for making it. David Jones on Ryan Giles. Thought Ryan Giles and his 1v1 defending were brilliant on Saturday. Looked so much more confident and assured. He can win his battle against his opposing winger. And great to see Coyle and Slater back to their more consistent selves as well. And Craig Bell just on Ryan Giles. A lot has been said about Giles' production up front, but I thought he was absolutely rock solid at the back. He's supposedly suspect defensively, but showed no signs of that on Saturday. And keen historian and various people getting in touch about Kasey Palmer says, has the Palmer situation been bubbling for a while? What is the situation, Baz?
Well, the situation is that Kasey is a very, very passionate player, and I think he gets very, very annoyed when he's not playing, which is not a bad thing. You want players to be upset when they're not in the team. Equally, when you get given your chance, if you've not been in the team, you've got to take it. And unfortunately, on Tuesday night against Preston, he didn't take it. He was one of three players hauled off at the break, along with Cody Drame and Amir. In fairness, as McBurnie rightly pointed out after the game, any number of the 11 players out there could have been hauled off, but they can't really do that. So he chose the three that he did. Kasey didn't react particularly favourably to being hauled off at the break. Again, part of that is probably his own personal frustration of not playing well when given the chance. And then obviously he wasn't in the original when they did the shape and they did the squad and everything on Friday. He wasn't part of Saturday's squad. He wasn't in the 18. Then Carl Joseph, unfortunately, was reported in sick Saturday morning. So when Kasey was was contacted to about being on the bench. He wasn't ready, and we don't know at this stage what wasn't ready. Was he on the way to Kingston? Getting ready to fly to Kingston, ready for Jamaica? Was he mentally not? Mentally, the manager said he wasn't ready. Obviously being left out of the squad and being disappointed with what happened on Tuesday. But ultimately, there's a situation there where City didn't have all players on the bench because there was a gap, and Kyle, he wouldn't have been in the squad had Kyle Joseph have not phoned in sick, essentially. So it's not an ideal situation, and it's kind of sad in the sense that it was one of the main talking points after a fantastic win, a really good end, good response to the defeat at Watford that should never have been, and we're talking about a less, not a negative situation, but a less than ideal situation. But it happens. Prutts hopefully can come in on that, but I think it will need resolving when he's back from Jamaican duty, which won't be until the back end of next week, because I think their first game is on Saturday against Curacao, and then I think they play at home against Grenada, I think, on the Wednesday night. So he won't get back, a bit like the last break. He won't get back to East Yorkshire probably until the Friday before the trip to Birmingham. So I mean, he won't be in the team. He might not even be in the squad at Birmingham. He was only named on the bench at Swansea. So it's not ideal. For me, I think it's easy for me to sit here and go, well, look, he's not in the squad. If he gets a phone call Saturday morning, he should be ready with his boots and his shin pads and get his arse down to the MKM Stadium and be on the bench and help his team. Prutts, is that from a player's point of view? I know I always come to you on player stuff, but what would you, what would you say about it?
With the benefit of hindsight and being hopefully a slightly older person reflecting on that particular position, I could see how he could be frustrated. I could see how he could be pretty miffed. If you are in a position where you're not in the squad and you're deemed to be not needed for that weekend, would he have to report to the game anyway? It being a home game.
In theory, yes, that he would be at the ground to, like Brandon Williams is another one we'll touch on in a minute. You'd expect that the players that aren't involved to not be given the weekend off to go and play golf or spend it with their kids. You would expect.
Yeah.
Them to be,
I mean, if he's asked, because in theory, it's still a work day, isn't it? A match day's the biggest work day of the week for a footballer. I'm trying to work out, because obviously not knowing any of the details, whether he was on his way to get to wherever he needed to travel to. Having been in that position myself, where it was not in the sense of being in the team on a Tuesday and then being dropped from the squad at the weekend, the frustration would come from being in a position where you were training all week, not getting a look in the squad, and then suddenly out of the blue, somebody saying, "We need you for that." That has happened in the past, and you are a little bit frustrated, is probably the word. But I'm saying this as a 44-year-old man rather than someone in his mid-20s at a football club and a bit miffed with a few situations. If you are on a Tuesday not playing well, you've been hooked along with another couple of players, when, as Ollie says, it could have been anyone. You've just got to really take that on the chin. To not then make the squad at the weekend again would be something that's obviously angered Kasey. But then to declare yourself not mentally ready for it, it's such a tough one for me to pass judgment on that, because given the advances and the understanding, or the broader understanding of what the mental capacity and health of footballers and young professionals, and I'm talking specifically in football, not broadening that out into a bigger subject, you've got to be very wary of what's going on in a person's life before passing judgment. I absolutely get that. But if it's a case of throwing your toys out the pram, I've not got any real time for that at all, to be honest. To then say, I'm not ready is, I find it really hard to deal with that. Akin to listening to Gary Neville talk yesterday, where Ruben Amorim's saying that pundits are putting players off playing for Manchester United. Utter rubbish. Just utter, total and utter rubbish. And pathetic, in fact, from a manager of a juggernaut of a football club and an institution. But going back to Kasey's point, whether it's a figurative 2 fingers up to the reaction of not being in the squad. I don't know whether there's other bits going on off the pitch. And you can tell I'm really skating around the issue, because there is a part of me that is 20 years ahead of where Kasey probably is, with the benefit of hindsight of looking at football both as a player and now seeing it over a decade away from being inside a dressing room. I don't really have much time for people that say I'm not quite ready, to be honest. But again, I'm saying that without knowing any of the details with it, and also being in a position where football clubs are very quickly and can be very quick to say cheers and bugger off. But when they need you, it's come back in here, you know what I mean, back into the fold. But again, without going all Roy Keane on you, it's his job. Regardless of whether you're in that 18, I still think professionally you've got to make sure that you're available. What if there'd been a food poisoning situation that had run right through the team on a Friday evening or Friday night, and Saturday morning suddenly they're looking around for bodies? You've got to be ready for it, regardless of how frustrated you feel, because I'm pretty sure the going rate for a player of Kasey's ability at City is pretty juicy.
And Kathryn, that was the thing. We saw that before the Blackburn game, didn't we? There was illness and players had to be on call. What I would say is the manager was pretty strong in his comments. He said that it's about the team. He said players are paid to play and he expects them to turn up when they're asked to turn up. And I asked him outright, I said, do you think that he still has a future at this football club? And he said, it's not up to me, that's essentially up to Kasey. But in a roundabout way, I want players at this football club that want to play for Hull City and want to be part of our group and our team. You know, he's clearly fostered a really positive working environment. Kasey's spoken openly about that recently, about how much he's enjoyed being part of Sergei's setup. He loves it, but he's only played 200 minutes or just over 200 minutes of football this season. So he's not played a lot. You could argue when he's come into
sorry to butt in, Baz, and butt in with you, Kathryn. I'm really sorry about this, but was it Kasey who mentioned something about the way that Tim Walter was running the dressing room in the club when he left? When we discussed that didn't sound particularly right with me either. A sense of almost like it cowed the team and the squad into feeling a certain way, unless I've got that completely wrong. But it was Kasey Palmer that said something along those lines about the feel around the place, and almost intimated that they felt not inferior, but intimidated by the manager and a bit scared by the manager's behaviour, which again, maybe at the time in my 20s, I might be thinking the same thing, but as way further down the line, I'm kind of going, well, football's a tough environment and can be a brutal environment. And if you don't understand that or accept that, then it's absolutely the wrong profession for you, I think.
Yeah, Kasey was one. There was Kasey, Mason Burstow, Regan spoke out. There was a few of them that spoke out about Tim Walter.
Like the big bad wolf had gone, which sounded... Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, sorry, as you were, talk to the real journo, Kathryn.
I think he also said, the manager, after the game, that nobody's above the team, which is usually quite a telling. It's a sentence like a manager says usually when they're not happy with the player or they think they're not behaving in the way that they want them to. I have a little bit of sympathy with Kasey in the sense of I didn't think he was the worst player on Tuesday night. I didn't think he was good, and nobody was in the first half. I thought he was trying to make things happen. He wasn't doing a particularly good job of it, but again, nobody was. But I do think he was sort of involved in things, so I could sort of understand maybe why he would have been frustrated at coming off at half time. But on the flip side, the changes they made in the second half, they were so much better. You can't really complain. Earlier in the season, I think against Oxford, he was having a really good game, and I think he got brought off. And at the time, I thought that was an interesting decision because it looked like Palmer was having a really good game. I'd have kept him on, and I think it was 2-2 at the time when he went off. And then they went on to win the game. So again, it's sort of one of those things where you can't, if the changes that are being made or the team are doing better when you're not in the team, and unfortunately, you just have to suck it up a little bit. And I think Regan Slater is a great example of, we spoke earlier about, he's not been consistently in the team. He's been in and out. He's played one game, he comes out the team, and he comes back in. He just gets on with it. He doesn't seem to complain. I can't imagine that he was particularly happy about being left out when he's been left out. But he always when he's called upon, he comes back in and he gives it everything. Joe Gelhardt probably wasn't happy at being left out of the team against Preston. He comes off the bench. He plays really well. He comes back in on Saturday. So I do think there's an element of maybe it feels like he's feeling a little bit too sorry for himself. And while I can appreciate his frustrations, he wants to play, and maybe he might feel that he's been treated a little bit unfairly in terms of the games he's been brought off or whatever. Unfortunately, as Prutts said, that is just football, and sometimes you just have to get on with it. And when you're called upon, if you've been, again, I could understand why he would be annoyed at being left out of the squad for Saturday's game, but when you're called upon, you have to be ready. And again, if there is other stuff going on, it's difficult when you don't know everything about the situation. But that's kind of the whole point, is that, you have to be ready when called upon. That is one of those sayings in football. And it's a little bit disappointing if, it is a situation where he's reacted because he wasn't in the team. So, I mean, hopefully it's something they can address and move past, because I do think he has something to offer when he's at his best. He's struggled with consistency since he came to the club. He'll have a good few moments, then he'll have games where he gets the opportunity to start and he doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't quite manage to sort of take that chance. Again, he might say it's difficult for him because he's been in and out of the team and he can't get any consistency or rhythm. But I go back to the other players that have been in similar situations and they just get on with it. So hopefully it's something, as I say, that can iron out when he gets back from the international break. And whether it is something, whether he looks for a move. I know there was talk of a move in the summer late on to Stoke, which didn't obviously materialise. Whether he's sort of half thinking about that, I wish I'd got a move. Whether it's something he tries to do in January, I don't know. But as I say, I think it's just a shame, kind of the way the situation is played out at the minute.
Yeah,
it's such a good point, Kathryn, that you make that, because when those changes are made, that's when sometimes the selfish part of being a footballer kicks in. You kind of think, well, if I'm not on, I don't care what happens now. And then you sit there and you think, oh God, they've won the game, or you change and they play really well. I remember when I was at Wednesday, when Gary Megson was in charge, we went to play at Stevenage, Graham Wesley's Stevenage, and we just got absolutely battered in all senses, and just kind of came off the pitch at half time. I think we were 3-0 down, just punch drunk, going, that's not football. I don't know what that is, but my God, that's effective. We were just, and me and Rob Jones, remember big 7-foot Rob Jones, absolutely going at each other. I was blaming the defence, he was blaming the midfield. I think even Clinton Morrison piped in and just going at each other. And Mego came in and without saying all the swear words that you kind of just basically said, sit down, you've both been crap and you're both coming off. So killed the argument stone dead. And you need to do this, and you don't matter, you two, you're both coming off, you've been crap, you've all been crap. And you've just got to sit there and you've got to take it on the chin, because not everyone's going to play every single minute. Not everyone's going to play wonderfully well for every single minute they're on the pitch. And Kasey might have just found himself in this little period, which is tough as a footballer. He might think he's been a bit of a scapegoat. I don't think we're not looking at the Preston game and going, City got done 7 and they were terrible and someone's never going to play again. They were crap for 45 minutes. They changed it, got something from the game. Well done, the manager. Well done, the players coming on and making an impact. Doesn't shut the door on Kasey Palmer being in City's first 11 at all. Just a little bump in the road. And again, maybe that's the benefit of hindsight. And when you're in that, because your game, your position in the team is the most important thing in your head, because you have to be very selfish to be a footballer, which is ironic given the fact that it's a team game. But I'd like to think that maybe he puts his head above this, takes a breath and realises, like Kathryn says, that, I mean, it's not the manager going after Kasey to say it's your fault that this might have happened. You just get periods of that in a playing career and in a season and in a few games. And maybe if he had a bigger bank of consistency behind him over a longer period of time, then the manager's gaze might not fall on him when it comes to changing. Just the way it is. Louis is a great example, being in and out of the team at time. As you say, with Regan, same thing. Not one of those City players is, and I'd even probably chuck Ollie into this, even though he's doing amazingly well. No one is irreplaceable. Absolutely no one in this. By virtue of the team and where the club finds itself in that middle core of the Championship, the reason that they're there is because they've got players that aren't irreplaceable, and there's a bit of inconsistency to it. He's just found himself there, and the only way you get back to it, and it'll never change, is work hard, good attitude, say yes to everything that the manager wants you to do, show willing to get back into it, don't throw your toys out the pram. And again, Kasey, if he listens to this, that's the approach I would take, away from potentially whatever may be going on with him personally, from a professional point of view, those fundamentals will never change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like Kasey, so I hope it sorts itself out. I think he's been one of the victims of Hull City over the past year. Signed by Tim Volter.
Constant turnover.
Yeah, the Tim Volter thing didn't work. He didn't fit into that system. Ruben came in. He's had a couple of injuries as well. The team was struggling. Then Jurkovic comes in, and he's not. He was away. Obviously, he was away a portion of the summer, so he came to pre-season quite late. I think he's just been a victim of a lot of churn at Hull City, and throughout his career, Kasey's been inconsistent. He's shown glimpses. Coventry, 1 minute he was fantastic, the next minute not. And so, there's always two sides to a story. Of course there is, but I think from Kasey's point of view, he's got to come back from international duty and as you say, Prutts, get his head down and work hard and show the manager that he's worthy of wearing that number 10 shirt and get in the team. And when he gets in the team, grab his chance and say, and the only way he can act is, I'm going to keep my shirt. I'm going to deliver a performance. I'm going to score a goal. I'm going to create something that means in the next game, the manager can't leave me out. And he can't play Joe Gowhart in the number 10. He can't play Darko JB in the number 10, or he can't play an under 21s player in the number 10. He's got to pick me. Burnsy, any more comments before we finish on the final topic?
Yeah, well, a couple of people are sort of looking into the future already, so we might go slightly crystal ball for the end of the 1904 club. Clement Attlee, not that one, JDB, says, over the past few hours, I've been having 2007-08 vibes about this City team. The division looks wide open this year and will give anyone a game. Keep working on the defence and the sky's the limit, I think, or am I dreaming? And he's gone #eerily similar. Back in 07-08, City were after 9 games. Let me find it. If I've got this right. Now I can't work out which table's which table now. Where are they now, Baz?
They are 15th.
Yeah, I know. 15th now, 12 points. Yeah. Back in 07-08, they were 14th with 11 points from 9 games. So there you go. I agree with that. It's wide open, and I don't know personally. I don't know how good this City team can be, but there are possibilities there in a wide open division. And read the Palmer situation. I hope it gets sorted. I hope it gets sorted out. That's the main thing. I think he's a player with talent, but I don't think we've seen enough of it here.
Agreed. Kathryn, on the comparison, this is really, really comical, actually. So, as we touched on there, City are 15th in the Championship, 3 points off the top 6. They've got 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats from their 9 games. Scored 14, conceded 16. A year ago, at this exact moment, after 9 games, City were 13th, but 4 points off the top 6. They've got 12 points, exactly the same. They've scored 12 and conceded 13, so similar. I guess the thing about that comparison is a year ago they won 3 games in a week at Stoke, at home to Cardiff in the anniversary game, and then away at Rangers when they should have been 5-0 down in 10 minutes, but for Panda. Then they didn't win another game until the game before Christmas against Swansea when Ruben won his first home game. Obviously, within that, Volta left. Andy Dawson came in for a couple of games, and then Ruben came in. It's mad, isn't it? How they've got exactly the same point base as they did 12 months ago, but yet the feeling around the football club, I think we would all be astonished if it went to the 23rd, 24th of December before they won another football match.
Yeah, and I think maybe the difference is that the type of football that is being played maybe is a little bit better. Well, a lot better this season than it was at this time last season. I think those 3 games in a row, before those 3 games, I think everyone was kind of getting a bit agitated. They hadn't won, not playing well. And then they went on that run, and then it all just went south. So I think it didn't the good feeling wasn't as, I think the good feeling this season has been from the start till now, with maybe a couple of hiccups in between where we've questioned a couple of things. But I think last season, that good period was in such a short space of time, because it was a Saturday win, a midweek win, Saturday win, or something. It was something like that. It was a bit kind of clustered together, and then it all just went south. So I think maybe, but it is interesting, kind of looking back at the comparisons, and yeah, I think there's just more of a feel-good factor around the football that's being played this season compared to last season.
And they've won 3 at home, which is astonishing. It took them till March last year to win 3 at home. So they've won 3 at home in the first 5 games. Right, that's it from this week's episode of the 1904 Club. Thanks for your comments on the top 3 players. We'll get to that next week. Lots of questions about Brandon Williams as well. He's just not in the squad at the minute. He's not fit enough. We expect him to play at Coventry on Tuesday in the 21s, along with, I think, Destan Famewo and Darko JB. So nothing untoward with Brandon Williams in that respect. Prutts, as always, thanks for popping by in your lovely hotel room.
Yeah, nice to sit and chat and get carried away for a little bit. It's looking nicely rosy at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. Burnsy, thank you as always.
No problem. Enjoyed it, as always.
And KB, he did walk off at one point when Prutts was talking. So.
Sorry about that. It's the door went. I'm the only person in the house, and it's actually an order for one of our friends in journalism's having a baby in a couple of weeks, and he's a Birmingham City fan. So we've got him. He won't listen to this podcast, so it's fine. It won't ruin the surprise. But we've got him like some Birmingham City gift. So that was what because I thought I haven't ordered anything, and then I looked. Oh, it's from Birmingham City. Yeah, it'll be that.
What was it?
Which is ironic because we play them in the next game. So I think the baby is due around then. I did say if Hull win, I think he should name his son after a Hull player. But
well, the boss, my baby Sergey.
Just really angry eyes like Damon.
Yeah.
Was it a half and half scarf, Birmingham City and Hull City?
It should have been, shouldn't it? Should have got him a whole baby outfit instead of a Birmingham one.
Absolutely. Right. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments. We do read them all, and we will be back again soon. Up those Tigers.